Good morning. I would like to call this November 1st meeting of the Planning and Advisory Commission to order. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, and I find it incredibly hard to believe it is November the 1st. I don't know what happened to October. I know we didn't meet at one point, but whew, it has flown. We have got approval of minutes. Commissioners, you were given a copy of the minutes earlier in the week, and if we don't have any changes or additions, we can accept them as submitted, but let me ask if there are any corrections or additions that need to be made. I see no one, so we will submit those as accepted. We have no old business, but we do have two cases brought before us today. And our first case, well, let me back up. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let me remind the audience that we will first hear, this is the first reading of any of the rezoning or special exception requests brought before us today. We will first hear the reading of the staff report for the case, then we will ask the applicant to provide a brief overview. And then we will give an opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request. The commissioners will then have any needed discussion, and they will vote and then render a recommendation to the City Council. And then this recommendation goes back to the Planning Division and then on to the City, which it will be heard two more times before rendering a final decision. So we have gone through our minutes, and this brings us to our first case, which is REZN-10-17-1988. And this is a request to amend the zoning atlas of the Columbus Consolidated Government. Jared Yasenchuk, which I've probably just messed that name up, but of Columbus, Georgia, has submitted an application for 5344 Kolb Avenue, which is actually parcel number 188-020-019. The current zoning is LMI, Light Manufacturing Industrial. The proposed zoning is GC, which is General Commercial, and the property is located in Council District 8. Mr. Harrett, if you'll read the staff report, please.
Thank you. Applicant is Jared Yasenchuk. Owner is the same. Location is 5344 Kolb Avenue. Acreage is plus or minus 2.686 acres. Location, or the current zoning classification is LMI. Proposed zoning classification is General Commercial. Current use of the property is pest control in Building A. Proposed use of the property is pest control in Building A and a banquet facility in Building B. General land use is consistent, is in Planning Area F. Current land use designation is light industrial. Future land use designation is public institutional. Compatibility with existing land uses, it is. There is no environmental impacts. All city services are provided. When we did our traffic impact, both of the 9th and 10th editions of the traffic generation manual do not include information to do a banquet facility or a convention center. So we don't have any information to bring to you for that.
Okay.
Traffic engineering, they'll just, when they do a site plan, if they alter any buildings, they'll submit that to engineering at that time. There was no comment from schools. Buffer requirement is a category C on everything that abuts LMI property. There were 26 people within 300 feet that were notified. We did not receive any calls or emails on it. I do believe we have somebody in the audience that would like to speak to it. And just for additional information, the Muskogee County School District has closed Bellwood Elementary School that is close to the property, but it is still owned by the district.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions regarding the staff report? Yes, Mr. Dudley.
On the traffic analysis, that you are not giving any guidance on traffic, does that mean that the commission should just sort of make its best guess as to what the impact of this would be on traffic? It seems like there is a lot of residential nearby that might be affected by traffic if it's a nighttime event facility?
We don't have any data. We don't have any way to calculate anything to actually give you any data to look at. So you're going to have to make your best guess because we can't find any information to hand to you to help you with that.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioners, for Mr. Harrod? All right, if the applicant will please come forward and you'll state your name and address and give us a brief overview.
Hey, I'm Jared Yusenshok. My address is 4191 Georgia Highway 219 in Fortson, Georgia.
If you want to
And-
give us a brief overview of
Yeah, so
any other information that we may need.
so I bought the property there, which there's of course 2 buildings, and I own Jared's Pest Control. I have 27 employees. We operate out of one building that's 4,500 square feet, and there was a second building on that property which is 10,000 square feet. We've got to have continuing education, so every year everybody has to have so many hours. We have to pay for this, and we travel to Atlanta, Macon, Georgia, Augusta, all over for continuing education. So in order to obtain a license, when you go to the I forget what it is now, the certificate of occupancy, what they have is what they call banquet hall. So when you hear the word banquet hall, we don't want to get confused with banquet hall, but right now we pay $1,000 to go to Columbus State University to give training on those classes. And they use the Shriners Club. They pay $400 for that. So I was hoping to have a continuing education place in here to give classes, continuing education, and I've got retired Command Sergeant Major Sam Rhodes with me with the Warrior Outreach, and we'd like to do stuff for the veterans.
Thank you.
You want to say something?
Well, we'll get him up here in a second. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Mr. Dudley?
So are you planning to use the facility for training for your own staff only, or for the general public, anyone who's interested in renting the facility?
If we would bring people here, they can rent the hotels, buy food here, so instead of us going to these places, if we have a facility, we can have everybody in Georgia and Alabama come to our facility, which isn't all the time. We have 6 meetings a year for that right now, which is in Columbus. So if we can bring people to Columbus, it wouldn't be a traffic problem on, coming down Cobb Avenue, which is all commercial. So from the new Walmart that's there behind the college is commercial, and when you come down the street, the Rock Shop's commercial. There's automobile places there that work on cars is commercial. Everything on that access to get there is commercial. And if you do cut through Bellwood past the school is commercial, and everything that you pass is commercial. So the only LMI entrance is through 54th Street. So where I'm considered LMI, if you look at the way the traffic flow has to go, in order to get to Shumar, which is off 54th Street, and in order to get to Sherwin-Williams and all the industrials, 54th Street. So if you really look at an aerial map, everything that's the LMI in that area is all accessed from 54th Street. My property, you can't get to it through there. I can't go from 54th Street into Shumar or into Sherwin-Williams and drive through there and get to my property. It can't happen. I'd have to go back down Veterans Parkway, make a right on Manchester, and then come in through Kolb. So if you come in through Kolb, you're coming through all commercial. And so if you really look at a map from an aerial view, you think it would be commercial property, not light industrial, but probably years ago when they had a plat, they made it LMI.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioners? All right, is there anyone, thank you, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this proposal? Okay, no one. Anyone? Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. If you'll come forward and state your name and address, and then let us hear from you.
My name is Charlene Moore. And I live at 1107 52nd Street in Bellwood. And it's not so much as speaking against, I had a few questions and concerns. Based on a couple of comments that the gentleman just said, Olive Cobb Avenue is not business. There are residential, there are houses there. In fact, there are new homes there. And my home will be located to the back of this, well, it is located to the back of the pest control already, and to the banquet hall that will be opening up. And my main concern is when Ann's auction was there in business in full swing, it didn't happen often, but there were times when she was in full swing that the traffic was busy, and there were actually patrons parking right in front of our home, that the auction was so big that the parking backed up all the way down 52nd Street. And that would be my concern, that during your training sections, what would the capacity be for the number of people coming, and how would the parking be accommodated? That would it be overflowed back down Cobb to 52nd Street? That would be my concern, because we did have several of her auctions where the parking was overflowing back all the way down our street. And how often, I think you said 4 or 5 times a year, but that would be just for your company, and how often, because you said you wanted to open up to the public, and I think that's the main concern that we have as far as this facility opening up, is the parking, because it would just really overflow and over bombard our street. And that's really all that I had to say and ask.
Okay, thank you. Well,
Thank you.
if you want to address that concern here at the mic.
Of course, it happened because she said that, but I couldn't imagine that many people showing up, because there's, 2.8 acres on that property, and it's all gravelled. We've been putting gravel in and everywhere and everything. It's flat and gravelled. I've got 27 vehicles that I own, plus employee vehicles, and so we have anywhere on every day, on an average of probably 35, 40 vehicles parked in there now, and there's a lot of room. If you take 2.8 acres of land, and if you took the square footage of that, and the square footage of a car, I couldn't imagine that.
Sir, could you speak up just a little bit?
Yeah, just speak a little bit into the
Oh,
mic, but yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't imagine it, I don't know, when she said that, I couldn't imagine it backing up. Ann must have had a really good auction to have that many people, or didn't let people park behind the other buildings or on both lots. I don't know.
Okay.
So, but that's a lot of cars I wouldn't imagine it to have that many vehicles to ever park like that.
Mr. Reese?
Question, with the training that you've attended in Macon and the other places that you named, from your best guesstimate, how many people usually attend a training class?
It varies, and if they have them like in hotels, they would have them in a hotel banquet room, which wouldn't hold many anyway, but we just had one the other day, and we had it at Ed's Southern Cooking, that they had one here in Columbus, and there was probably 30 people in there. So if everybody drove a car, it would be 30 cars at that particular meeting.
And you think your lot can accommodate how many cars? If organized parking is done, you have someone out there actually facilitating the location of the parking to make
Yeah.
sure that space is fully utilized, how many cars you think you can get there?
40, 80, man, it'd have to do at least 120 vehicles, right? I haven't done the math, but a square footage on an acre is what? A lot, 64,000 square feet or somewhere in that area, which in a car is what, 16 feet by 7.5 feet or something. I mean, if you did the math on that, it'd probably hold 200 vehicles in there parked properly. But I couldn't imagine any class or anything having there.
Well,
Be that
but I
bad.
think the concern with this resident is it's not just that it's the classes. If you open it up and rent it to the public, it could be a wedding reception. Mr. Harrod, is there anything in our documentation that specify parking, like this, a parking requirement for this ordinance?
There is, whenever they get ready to do this, they'll have to come in for a site development, and then they'll have to get a building permit if they're going to make any changes. But there's a requirement for how many parking spaces they have to have per square foot. I think it's like, just off the top of my head, I want to say it's either 3 or 4
Yeah, per square foot.
per so many square
Yeah.
feet, so.
And I think the challenge that we probably don't address is if there was a public event there, and there's nothing in the ordinance that says these private citizens can't park on the curbs of the street. I'm sure, you know what I'm saying? Even though there might be adequate parking, how many times have you been to an event where people don't pull into the parking lot because they want to get?
It would, each street can be closed for parking on the side, so it would just depend on if those streets have been closed where you cannot park on the side of the street.
Okay, so there's some possibilities that going forward that could ease the concern of the
Yes.
resident?
Yeah. We could always have engineering bring forward that you cannot park on 52nd, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Just to make me feel better, can I get a commitment from you to work with this lady here, this nice lady, to make sure that any events you have, parking won't be an issue? I mean, I know we have city resolutions, but I just think
Yeah.
when people can come to compromises and have an actual relationship where she can come to you and say, hey, you know, you had an event and there were some people parked here, relationships work out better, in my opinion, than
That's
getting a lot of
right.
government
That's right.
involved.
I don't think anybody would park outside the facility. I've already got the fire marshal come to look at everything. He said it could hold 100 people inside that building at this point now. I can go to 150 people if I add a second door, and then he's talking 300 people with overhead fire things. I'm not paying that kind of money to do anything like that, so.
Well,
at
and the
100
good news-
people- At 100 people in there at a wedding or
Yeah.
something, you're gonna come with a husband and wife and probably 2 people per car. So at 100 people that could be held in there would limit that to 50 cars, which would never park on the street. There'd be plenty of parking for that.
well, and the
So-
good news is there are ordinances in
Yeah.
place that will
Yes.
require him to have probably striped parking or certain parking spaces.
He'll be required to have a certain amount of parking
And
for the
we
uses.
can also step that up and even have something put out that would prevent the public from parking on the curb without being fined.
Yes.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. Does that make
Yeah.
you feel better? Good. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry.
But I guess for his purposes, when he goes to get the CO and his business license, it's going to be for a specific type of business. And although the UDO only describes a banquet hall, which doesn't adequately describe what he's
What
going to
he's
do
trying
here,
to-
his CO and business license is going to be for a training facility of this nature, which if they're not falling into what their CO and their business license is, that's a different thing as well. I mean, it sounds like we solved it anyways.
But I hear what you're saying. I guess what you're saying is
The
that if
UDO
his-
doesn't match what the business
he
license and
can't
the COs
have
are.
banquets. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know about he can't, but
Currently, right now, he has pest control there in Building A.
Right.
So he has a requirement and a license to do that. And he's
Right.
gotten his CO for that. When he comes back to do if so granted, to do the banquet facility,
right.
then he'll have to come in for a CO to get that. And then that'll increase the amount of parking he has, because he has to have the right amount of parking for his current business, and then the increased amount.
Right.
Okay.
But it sounds like we solved it anyway, so.
Well, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak against the proposal? Yes, sir. If you'll come forward and state your name and address and give us, over here. This one, yeah.
My name's Randy Moore. I live at 1107 52nd Street. I'm neither for, well, kind of for, but still concerned about what's going on. The parking, the abandoned school. There's a section there that's a field that's down in a grade. If there's overflow parking, why couldn't they purchase that section and open that up as a parking?
First of all, we don't know that it's for sale, and, I mean, we can't mandate that someone
Okay, I'm
buy something. And I think the parking, we've kind of got that resolved at this point, is
Okay.
what it sounds like to me, anyway.
Okay, what about the security, lighting,
Mr. Harris?
any after-hour?
That is, the security is something that will have to be taken care of by the property owner. We don't have anything that necessarily talks about security in the UDO. That is the owner's.
Yeah, it's his
Yeah.
responsibility to have
His
keep his property
responsibility.
secure.
He will be required to have that 30-foot, either, there's 3 different buffer tops he can have. He's going to be required to have that once the zoning changes, if approved. There's going to be, he can either choose a 20-foot buffer with a certain amount of canopy and trees, a 10-foot buffer with a certain amount of shrubs and ornamental grasses, and a wooden fence or masonry fence, and then a 30-foot undisturbed buffer. So he's going to be required to have a buffer around those properties that are LMI. Both of the properties that are behind him and in front of your house are LMI. So there will have to be a buffering there, which should keep down on any light intrusion. And then the UDO goes back to light intrusion, that there can only be a certain amount of light that is shadowed onto the actual property, and it doesn't overflow off of the property.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's
All
it.
right, thank you. Anyone else in the audience who would like to speak against this proposal? Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak in favor of it? Yes, sir, if you'll come forward and state your name and address for us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Sam Rhodes. I live in Harris County, 6388 Georgia Highway 219, Fortson. I'm also a retired Army, 29 years, and I'm the founder of Warrior Outreach Program established in 2008 to help veterans. And as we know, and being a retired Command Sergeant Major from Fort Benning, I know how many veterans live in this district, how many veterans live in this great city and the Tri-City area. So it's important to me, and not only as a veteran, but as American, that we continue to do everything in our power to help our veterans. And that's what Jared and his family has done. Over the last 2 years, they've partnered with us to help veterans in this area, to help us do veterans home repairs. We are a nonprofit. I also work full-time at Fort Benning, and I pay about 70% of what we do out of my own pocket. That's how committed my wife and I are to this program. And this, when he brought this up to my attention a few months back, I see every opportunity here for me to not only, I go all over, Sumter, I go Everett, Dothan, I'm helping in Florida, I'm helping in Alabama, even in Maryland. Anywhere there's an opportunity for us to get some veterans together, to talk to them about the post-traumatic stress challenges, to reduce the suicides. And I don't want to take a lot of your time. I'm ready for that. You know, I work full-time, I volunteer about 80 hours a week just for this program. Nobody gets paid for this program. You know, that's one of the criteria for Warrior Outreach. If you want to get paid, you need to go to Kmart because you're not getting a job here. Because this is all about giving from the heart, and that's what this family does for our community. I'll give you an example. I was just recently visited a prisoner in our Muskogee County Jail. Never met the gentleman before. Over 30 years veteran, and I sat down and listened to him, talked to him, and try to understand why he's in jail for an instant reaction like that. I suffer from post-traumatic stress myself, and I understand that in a second, in an instance, is all you have, that you can either take your own life by suicide, or you can take somebody else's life, which that gentleman did. That's what Warrior Outreach does, and that's what we want to do more in this community to help more veterans, because that's what this country is made for.
First, I want to thank you so much for your service. That means a lot to all of us sitting here, and I don't want to make light of that. Are you looking to use this facility as a gathering place for your veterans, whether it's for social events or counseling? I mean, is that what you're looking for this facility to be used for?
It's going to definitely expand my capability. It's 32 miles, and if you come from Fort Benning to where the ranch is out at Fortson. I used to old Holiday Inn over here. I used to meet there. I met at the VFW on Victory Drive. We met at all different facilities. And there's a lot of veterans that just, it ain't like an ADA. These are just veterans that's got different challenges. I mean, everybody, I know I got challenges. Probably everybody on that great chamber's got challenges of some sort. If you got a teenage kid, there's a challenge right there. Or a grandkid that's got you wrapped around their finger. So either way, we got challenges. So when we get them together in that place right there off 54th Street, Sherwin-Williams and Ferguson Plumbing, they're great supporters of Warrior Outreach as well. There's I just need to get those veterans in a group, and I don't think these great Americans back here would mind having people park on their second street if it's for the right cause. If we had 300 veterans showed up that day that's got challenges and we can help them, I don't think they'd mind that. But knowing, Jared, that there'll be plenty of measures in place. Just like we have a ranch, we have overflow parking. I park at Antioch Baptist Church. It's very important to surround yourself with a community that understands what you're trying to do there.
Gotcha.
So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And anybody else, commissioners, any questions? Thank you very much. And again, thank you for your service and what you're doing. Anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this proposition? All right. Any other discussion amongst the commissioners, or do I hear a motion? Mr. Brandon.
In the case of REZN-10-17-1988, a request to amend the zoning at parcel 188-020-019 from LMI to general commercial. The general land use is consistent, therefore I move that we approve this rezoning request.
Do I hear second? And all those in favor, please raise your right hand. It is unanimous. So we will submit this for recommendation for approval, and we thank you for what you're doing. This brings us to our next case, which is REZN-10-17-1989. This is a request to amend the zoning atlas of the Columbus Consolidated Government. Scott Boyce of Columbus, Georgia, has submitted an application for 2611 and 2617 Warm Springs Road. Parcels 069-017-004 and 069-017-005. The current zoning is SFR3, which is Single Family Residential 3. The proposed zoning is RO, which is Residential Office, and the property is located in Council District 8, Garrett. Mr. Harrod, if you will give us our staff report, please.
Thank you. Applicant is Scott Boyce. The owner is Roma Real Estate LLC. Location is 2611 and 2617 Warm Springs Road. Acreage is plus or minus 0.56 acres. Current zoning classification is SFR 3, Single Family Residential 3. Proposed zoning classification is RO, Residential Office. Current use of the property is on-site parking. Proposed use of the property is on-site parking and office. General land use is consistent. It's in Planning Area D. Current land use designation is single-family residential. Future land use is office and professional. Is compatible with existing land uses. There are no environmental impacts. All city services are provided. 9 trips, if rezoned, 9 trips would be increased AADT, annual average daily trips. LOS, level of service for Warm Springs, will still stay at a level B. There's no traffic engineering concerns or school concerns. Buffer requirement will be a Category C buffer for SFR 3 properties that abut it. There were 35 people notified. We received no calls or emails regarding that. Just to keep you aware, in this area, there is the Tableton Road, Warm Springs Road project that is currently going on underway, and they are expanding that, I believe, to a 4-lane with a turning.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Harrod regarding the staff report? All righty. Mr. Boyce?
Good morning. My name is Scott Boyce, 5767 Roaring Branch Road, Columbus, 31904. I'm with the Woodruff Brokerage Company today on behalf of Roman Real Estate. Roman Real Estate has a proven track record of owning and operating several real estate properties in Columbus. I direct your attention this morning to your rezoning application in front of you. We're asking to take 0.56 acres of land currently zoned SFR3, single-family residential, to RO, residential office. This property is number 2611 and 2617 Warren Springs Road. These tracts of land are currently vacant. There were two single-family houses on this property that were recently moved off the property. We're asking to rezone this RO. It is served by all city services. The property has two curb cuts for ease of access onto Warren Springs Road. This property is certainly compatible with surrounding RO uses up and down this section of Warren Springs Road, and is consistent with the city planning use maps. Therefore, we respectfully request that you approve this zoning to RO. It meets all the criteria. We have not received any negative comments from the surrounding neighborhoods on this. The use for Roman Real Estate will be for continued on-site parking, for overflow parking from their three office buildings just up the street, number 2737 Warren Springs Road. The employees have been parking on this site. You couldn't see it because the two houses were in the front. They will, like I said, they have removed the houses. They will gravel the parking lot and place in some security lighting on this site. I will answer any questions you may have at this time.
So we have no one in the audience, so I'm not going to call for anyone who's in favor or against, but I will ask the commissioners if any of you have any questions for Mr. Boyce.
Just for clarification, you
Yes.
said this is for overflow parking?
It's going to be first for employee parking,
Okay.
because the medical use is so intensive on their parking. They'll use it for employees, and if certain days they will use it for overflow parking. They have three medical buildings, probably 300 yards up the street. There's a signal at the intersection that they'll cross.
Right.
But it will be first for employees and then for overflow.
Well, traffic moves through that area pretty good. I drive through there every day, and I
Yeah.
saw the process of them jacking up the homes
Right.
and putting it on the loader truck and taking
We
them
got a
off,
lot
so
of
that was
calls
pretty
on those
cool.
once the sign went up, but they have been taken care of.
Yeah.
And they've
Yeah, that
been
was
moved to
pretty
another
cool.
location. So it's for parking now, and that's what they're going to use it for.
So just to clarify, this is for parking on the west side of Armour Road, and then people would cross Armour Road to get to
Right.
to the buildings?
Actually, and the lot really, it may appear a little different, but it really fronts the north
fronts
side of Warren Springs Road
Springs.
before it turns into Armour Road.
Yeah.
And like Kevin said, as soon as that construction's finished, it'll be a little bit better. Right now, it is congested, but, give it 12 months, maybe it'll be completed.
But there are sufficient crosswalks right there. People go to the gym all the time.
Yeah,
So
there
there's a
are.
lot of
They're
pedestrian
marked.
traffic that's
Right.
already managed well
Yeah.
in that area and is well marked.
Any other questions, commissioners, for our applicant? Do I hear a motion?
As it relates to matter,
Mr.
you want
Reese?
to take it? Okay. REZN 1017, 1989. Applicant Scott Boyce, owner Roman Real Estate, location 2611 and 2617 Warren Springs Road. Currently zoned as single-family residential 3, proposed zoning residential office. All use compatible existing land usage is current and yes, and there are no additional recommendations from the staff. I move that we approve the request.
Second, Mr. Davis seconds it. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It is unanimous, so it will be submitted as a recommendation for approval. Thank you. And that brings us to the conclusion of our cases. Mr. Harrod, is there any announcements or any other information that we need to pass on before we adjourn?
Just that our next meeting will be on November the 15th.
And
And that's it. We appreciate everybody who was able to make it out to the conference, and we'll be coming back with our new schedule for next year in the next coming months.
all right, thank you so much. We are adjourned.